got worse and worse, and finally when I said this to him, I said, well, if this is all true and you know it and I know it, how come your parishioners don't? And it was like fire out of there. As you know, it was like, boom, out of there. And I had 2 days to go on this particular retreat, you know. Mm-hmm. But it is, they have it all. It's down there in their basements, in their books.
This is what Dionysius did, now called pseudo-Dionysius. Pseudo means phony, not true.
But it's totally true.
I'll show you what he did. Right. Now, remember the date, 530. That's when it was presumed to have been written. It entered into history the first time at 530. At 529, from approximately 320, there were a series of laws put into practice through Rome, in the center of the Roman Empire, Rome. They passed a series of edicts outlawing the study and the teaching of philosophy. They even brought a law in 370, death to philosophers. But philosophy was still allowed to survive in certain areas: Athens, Alexandria, Syria. In Plato's academy, which started obviously at the day of Plato, right, continued uninterrupted, splendid history. But Emperor Justinian, Christian, said, we will close once and for all of these pagan Platonic schools of philosophy. We will close them all down. And that ended philosophy in Europe until the Renaissance, when the text came back into Europe in the 15th century. Where did these philosophers go? They went to Syria. They were in exile. They went to Syria. At that place, that's where they found these texts from Dionysius. Isn't that handy? This is what Dionysius did. He saw the end of this great classic culture. He saw it coming. It was final. It was over. They closed everything. Persecuted philosophers. He looked back at this entire Hellenic age, all that they did, and he wanted then to preserve it. So he put into it the major ideas, and he put them in a magnificently and beautiful form and passed it off as if it was Christian. So therefore, what we can do if you have an interest, you can go backwards. Because we're familiar with Christian literature, it's in our culture. You can now read Dionysius to get the bridge to go back into the Hellenic age. That's the way it should be done. Now, he did several works, and he did 10 letters. And there's really a very fine text by Hathaway that has translated the 10 letters, and he's got a beautiful introduction and footnotes and everything else. Is a very, very fine piece of work. Hathaway is his name, a very fine gentleman. And I always urge people, to, if they have a bookstore, to get that copy of Donald Hathaway's work on Pseudo-Dionysius, 10 letters. And if you need the title, in more accurate title, I can get it for you. Just drop me a note, and I'll be pleased to send it to you. So that's the work, you see. That's Dionysius. Powerful work, beautifully written. And he shows people how to get into metaphysics with symbols. It's a text of how to get into, but that's the way of the symbolic way of understanding things in the ancient world. So he preserved a great deal of this great metaphysical work of the Greeks under the disguise that it was Christian. They accepted it, and therefore it entered into Europe.
And it had a massive effect on Thomas Aquinas.
Pardon me?
Didn't it have an incredible effect on Thomas Aquinas?
Oh, his Summa Theologica has quoted him 1,700 times.
Which just affected all of the Christian world yet again.
Yeah. But in today's world, it would be fun to get the whole thing. One volume, everything of his. Take a look at it, and you'll see that what he's doing is preserving the great Hellenic work in a very fine, condensed form. And he passed it off. So, of course, once that they just, By the way, the Catholic Church hung on to this until 1895.
And then what?
Well, but then they had to give it up. They had to say, yeah, it is phony. So they accepted the fact that it was phony. There's some people in the church that still want to preserve it because of its richness. So to answer your question, to go back, if it's heretical, you can study it in the university, put a professor between it and the students, and you won't have any trouble. That's what we did. That's what we do. So that is my... And that's why I say Platonism and alchemy is really part of the recovery of Platonism. It's a very strange search. It's a lost treasure, and I encourage people to get back into it because of its depth and its magnificent form and character and beauty. Thank you. Now, why didn't Jung? Why didn't Jung deal with that? I mean, why didn't Jung? There it is. It's all over. It's all Plato. He never went into the source, which is Plato's Republic. Obviously, one of the most learned gentlemen in Europe of our age. Studied the classic Greek, knows all the languages. Thou shalt not touch Plato.
And read by the masses, and if it would have had that in it, it would have been banned in all of the universities.
Don't know.
Maybe.
Don't know. I really don't know. It's not that I have some
because, I mean, he probably did know.
It's hard for me to believe that he didn't.
Precisely.
But there is such a prejudice against it, it could possibly be.
But I mean, but not just because, well, yeah, because of the prejudice that he would want what he was hinting at to be known, and if he would have put this in it, it would have been banned from all schools.
The difficulty I have with that, you see, you and I would expect if that's his goal, then present-day Jungians and the Jungian institutes, the institutes wherever they are, would then open this up and teach the Platonic vision of the Platonic tautologies, etc. And they don't. Matter of fact, the key alchemical works that he mentions in this work, they haven't translated. They're still in Latin.
Okay, what about something that you read tonight? I don't know the exact quote or what it was about, but it was something to the effect that only those of beauty could even reach this to duplicate it within themselves, of like kind, of like mind, would only be able to get this when they were ready.
Yeah. You need an intellect. Yeah, you need a mind. Have to have an interest in this. You have to be willing to...
The word the vulgar will not be able to get this. It's only when you reach a certain level that you'll be able to even get it.
Sure.
It's self-protecting, really.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Therefore, they don't have to hide it. But they do.
Yes, because nobody could get it unless they were ready for it.
So I guess we're willing to say then that the people that go to our universities are, for the most part, ignorant and they ain't going to get it, therefore let's not give it to them. That may be true, but I don't think it will be in any catalog that I know of. Thank you much.